The notary public looked at my wife across the table, then back at the two documents in front of her. The forged deed transfer with my signature on it, and the real one with my actual signature from a completely different year, and said, "Ma'am, these aren't even close." Wren's face did something I'd never seen in 4 years of marriage. It went from confident to confused to terrified in about 6 seconds. Her lawyer put down his pen. Her mother, Claudine, who'd been sitting in the back row of that conference room like she was watching her daughter accept a Nobel Prize, stood up and then sat right back down. And Wren, my wife, the woman who told me I was too broken, too angry, too damaged from deployment to ever be a real husband, opened her mouth and nothing came out. That was the moment. But that's not where this starts. This starts with a barbershop in Oak Park, a neighborhood in Sacramento. It starts with hair clippers and the smell of barbicide. It starts with my father, who died 11 months before any of this happened, and a promise I made him that I almost couldn't keep. My name is Teague Oduya. I was 26 when this happened last summer, and I was a licensed barber with a journeyman's card and a small but growing client list at my father's shop, Oduya's on Broadway. I'm half Nigerian, half Irish. My dad was from Lagos, my mom was from Roseville, and I got my dad's hands and my mom's stubbornness, which turned out to be exactly the combination I needed. I'm not a dramatic person. I don't yell, I don't throw things. My buddy Case once said I have the emotional bandwidth of a dial-up modem, and honestly, that's fair. I process things slowly. I sit with them. That made me a good barber. You'd be surprised how much of cutting hair is just listening and staying steady. But it made me a terrible husband to a woman who wanted a reaction out of me every single day. Growing up, my dad ran Oduya's 6 days a week. He opened at 7 a.m., closed at 7 p.m., and the only time I ever saw him sit down during business hours was when he was cutting someone's hair. The shop was on Broadway between a laundromat and a Salvadoran restaurant called Pupuseria Flores, and on Saturdays you could smell the curtido through the walls. My dad had 8 chairs, but he only ever used 5. The other 3 were for when the boys are ready, meaning me and my 2 younger brothers, Emeka and Solace. My mom left when I was 9. Just left. Went back to Roseville, married a guy named Dale who sold swimming pools and sent us birthday cards with $20 checks that sometimes bounced. I don't say that for sympathy. I say it because it's relevant. When someone leaves you early enough, you develop a specific kind of loyalty to the people who stay. My dad stayed. Every day, every haircut, every time I failed algebra or got suspended for fighting in 7th grade, he stayed. And the thing he said to me more than anything, more than "I love you," more than "do your homework," was this: "A man who knows his ground never has to run." Simple. Almost stupid sounding. But he said it when I was panicking about a school presentation. He said it when I got rejected from my first apprenticeship. And the last time he said it, October 2 years ago, 3 weeks before the pancreatic cancer took him in 11 days flat, he was sitting in chair number 1, the one closest to the window, and he squeezed my hand and said it one more time. A man who knows his ground never has to run. The shop was mine. He left it to me in a trust, not a will, and that distinction matters more than I can explain right now, but I'll get there. He also left me the building, which he'd bought outright in 2004 for $187,000 when Oak Park was still considered rough. By last summer, that building was assessed at $740,000. I didn't know that number yet, but someone else did. One thing about me: I keep paper, everything. Every receipt, every contract, every handshake deal followed up with an email. My dad used to joke that I was the only barber in Sacramento with a filing cabinet bigger than his supply closet. I had the original deed to the building in a fireproof lockbox at a storage unit on Stockton Boulevard, Unit 247, combination lock, not a key. I also kept a digital copy on an encrypted thumb drive in my glove box. Call it paranoia. Call it whatever you want. My dad lost a property dispute in 2011 because he couldn't produce the original paperwork, and I watched that happen, and I swore it would never happen to me. I also had a dream, and it was small. I wanted to expand Oduya's. Add a second floor with a training academy for young barbers. Maybe a small cafe area where guys could hang out after their cut. My dad and I had sketched it out on a napkin at a Denny's 2 years before he got sick. I still had that napkin. Laminated it, actually. Kept it in the lockbox, too. Now let me tell you about Wren. Wren Belcourt. She was 25 when we met, 27 when everything fell apart. She had auburn hair she wore in a French braid, green eyes, and a laugh that sounded like she was genuinely surprised by her own joy. We met at a mutual friend's barbecue in Land Park. She was standing by the cooler arguing with someone about whether San Francisco sourdough was overrated, and she was winning. She was wearing a yellow sundress and she had barbecue sauce on her thumb, and she looked at me like I was already interesting before I'd said a single word. That should have been the red flag. Nobody looks at a stranger like that unless they've already decided what they want from them. But I didn't see it. I saw a woman who laughed at my dry jokes, who asked me about my dad's shop with genuine curiosity, who showed up the following Tuesday with a bag of empanadas from Pupuseria Flores because I'd mentioned the smell. She listened. She remembered the smell. She made you feel like you were the only important thing in the room. And after 6 years of grieving my mom's absence, and then 11 months of grieving my dad's death, I was starving for exactly that kind of attention. We got married fast. 4 months of dating, courthouse ceremony, dinner at Crew, the sushi place on S Street, with Case as my best man, and Wren's mother, Claudine, as her witness. Claudine was a retired dental hygienist from Folsom who wore silk scarves indoors and called me honey in a way that made it sound like a diagnosis. She smiled a lot and said very little, and what she did say was usually about money. Honey, is the shop insured? Honey, is the building in both your names? Honey, have you considered what would happen if something happened to you? I answered those questions honestly because I didn't know yet that they were reconnaissance. The first year was good. Not fairy tale good, but real good. Wren worked part-time at a boutique on R Street called Verdant, folding cashmere and selling $400 candles to women in Tesla SUVs. She was charming with customers, and she'd come by the shop on her lunch break with a chicken Caesar wrap for me and a bag of hot Cheetos for old Mr. Gaspar, who sat in chair 5 every Thursday, whether he needed a cut or not. She'd kiss me on the cheek and wave to my clients, and they loved her. And then, not suddenly, not overnight, but like a faucet dripping, things started to shift. It was small things first. Wren stopped coming by the shop. It smells like chemicals in there, she said, which was true but had never bothered her before. She changed her phone passcode. I noticed because she'd always used 0417, our anniversary. And one evening in January, I picked up her phone to check the time while mine was charging and the code didn't work. When I mentioned it, she said, I change it every month for security. She didn't change it every month. She'd had the same code for over a year. Then came the spending. Not extravagant, but different. New clothes, not from Verdant, but from places downtown I'd never heard of. A $280 pair of boots. A $190 haircut at a salon in Midtown, which felt ironic given that she was married to a barber. When I asked about it, she laughed and said, What, am I supposed to let you cut my hair? And yeah, that stung. But I let it go, because I let everything go back then. The fracture, the real one, happened on a Saturday in March. I was closing the shop, sweeping up, and I found a receipt in Wren's jacket pocket. She'd left the jacket on the hook by chair 2 that morning. The receipt was from a restaurant called Andouille, a Cajun place in Midtown. 2 entrees, a bottle of wine, $187.42. The date was the previous Wednesday, a night Wren told me she was at a Verdun inventory event. I stood there holding that receipt with cut hair on my shoes and Marvin Gaye playing on the shop speakers, and I just looked at it for a long time. And that was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, I noticed patterns. Wren started working Tuesday and Thursday evenings at Verdant. Extra shifts, she said. She came home smelling like something that wasn't our soap, a cologne I couldn't place, woody and expensive. She started criticizing me in ways that felt rehearsed, like she'd been workshopping the insults. You spend more time in that shop than you do with me. It's like being married to furniture. That was the first one. Delivered while I was cooking us jerk chicken in the kitchen of our apartment on T Street. Our one bedroom with the crooked bathroom door and the upstairs neighbor who played trumpet badly every Sunday morning. The second came a week later, at Claudine's house in Folsom, during a dinner where Claudine had made a dry pot roast and an even drier observation about our finances. You know, honey, Claudine said, pushing the salt toward me like a peace offering. A barbershop is a lovely little hobby, but Wren deserves stability. Before I could respond, Wren jumped in. She's right. My friend Mercer says barbers top out at, what, $60,000? That's not a career, that's a ceiling. Mercer. First time I heard the name. Wren said it casually, like I should already know who this person was, Mercer says, like he was an authority on anything. Who's Mercer? I asked. Just a friend. From the gym? Wren didn't go to the gym. She did yoga twice a month at a studio on J Street and complained about it every time. I didn't push it. I ate the dry pot roast. Claudine smiled at me with all her teeth, and something in my chest that had been loose for weeks quietly tightened. The escalation from discomfort to cruelty took about 6 weeks, and each week was worse than the last. Beat by beat. Wren started coming to the shop again, but not to bring me lunch. She came to critique. Why is this place so dark? You need better lighting. The sign outside looks like it's from 1997. She said this in front of clients. Old Mr. Gaspar looked at his shoes. My apprentice, a 19-year-old kid named Giovanni, who I was training on fades, pretended to organize combs. Nobody said anything. I just kept cutting. Then came the money conversations. Wren wanted access to the shop's business account. She said it was our money, and that she needed to see the books to help us plan for the future. I showed her the books. Revenue was solid. The shop pulled in about $14,200 a month, which after expenses and Giovanni's cut left me with around $8,500. Not rich. But the building was paid off and the shop was mine. That was the foundation. $8,500 a month, Wren repeated, staring at the ledger like it had personally insulted her. Mercer's restaurant does that in a weekend. Mercer again. Mercer's restaurant. I filed that away. 2 weeks later, I found out what Mercer's restaurant was. It was a concept, as in, it didn't exist yet. Mercer Fontaine was a 31-year-old aspiring restaurateur who'd been a line cook at 3 different Sacramento restaurants, gotten fired from 2 of them, and was now developing a concept for a farm-to-table Cajun place. He had a website with no menu, an Instagram with 600 followers, and a GoFundMe that had raised $3,200. He also had my wife. I found out not because I went looking, but because Wren's phone buzzed on the nightstand at 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, and the preview showed a message from M that read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. You're everything." I didn't touch the phone. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, and I counted the cracks in the plaster. There were 7, so that was the confirmation. But I didn't confront her. Not yet. Because here's the thing about being a barber. You spend 10 hours a day standing behind people who can't see your face, and you learn to keep your expression neutral no matter what they tell you. Clients tell you about their divorces, their affairs, their embezzlements, their dying parents, their criminal records, and you just keep cutting, even hands, steady breathing. The chair doesn't judge. I became the chair. The public humiliation came at Wren's birthday dinner. She'd insisted on andouille, Mercer's future restaurant's inspiration, I now realized, and invited 8 people, including Claudine, Wren's co-worker Piper from Verdun, and 3 couples I barely knew. During dessert, bread pudding with bourbon sauce, $16 a plate. Wren turned to Piper and said, loud enough for the table, Teague still thinks he's going to turn his dad's little shop into some kind of empire. It's cute, right? Like when a kid says they want to be an astronaut. Piper laughed. Claudine smiled. The couples looked uncomfortable. I put my fork down, looked at the bread pudding, and said, this is really good bread pudding. That's it. That's what I said. This is really. And Wren rolled her eyes so hard I'm surprised they didn't get stuck. She escalated further at home. Started rearranging the apartment without asking. My dad's framed barber license, which I'd hung in the hallway. She moved it to the closet. It doesn't match the aesthetic. My clippers. I kept a personal set at home for practice. She put them in a box in the garage. They're an eyesore. She was erasing me from my own space, piece by piece, and doing it with the calm efficiency of someone who'd been given permission by a person I hadn't met yet. Then Claudine got involved. Direct involvement. She called me on a Thursday afternoon. I was mid-fade on a regular music playing, Giovanni sweeping. I stepped into the back room. Honey, Claudine said, I think it's time we had an honest conversation about the building. What about the building? Wren is your wife. Her name should be on that deed. It's only fair. If something happened to you, God forbid, she'd have nothing. She'd have the trust, I said. Trust can be contested, honey. You know that. I didn't know that, actually, but I knew she'd looked it up. I'm not adding Wren to the deed, Claudine. Silence. Then, you know, my late husband, Wren's father, he was a proud man, too. Proud men die alone. She hung up. I went back to the fade. My hands were steady. The chair doesn't judge, but the worst moment, the one that still sits in my stomach like a stone, came on a Sunday morning. I'd gone to the shop early to do inventory because we had a delivery coming Monday. When I got there at 6:45 a.m., the back door was unlocked. I stepped inside and the lights were on in the main room. Wren was sitting in chair number 1, my dad's chair, the one by the window, and sitting in chair 2, legs crossed, scrolling his phone, was a man I'd never seen before. Tall, light-skinned, manicured beard, wearing a linen shirt that probably cost more than my weekly grocery bill. Wren looked up and didn't even flinch. Oh, hey, I was showing Mercer the space. Mercer Fontaine looked at me and smiled. Not a hostile smile. Worse, a comfortable one, like he'd already been here before. Hey, man, he said. Great bones in this place. Wren's been telling me about the square footage. This would be perfect for the restaurant. The restaurant? He was measuring my father's barbershop for his restaurant, in my father's chair. I looked at Wren. She looked back with an expression I can only describe as professional, like I was a contractor she was managing. We've been talking about it, Wren said. The building's worth a lot more as a restaurant space than a barbershop. Mercer has investors. We could sell and use the money to get out. 2 words, quiet. Mercer looked at Wren. Wren looked at me. Nobody moved for about 4 seconds. Teague, Don't be dramatic. Get out. They left. Mercer first, then Wren, who grabbed her purse from the counter and said, on her way through the door, "You're going to regret this. You're choosing a dead man's dream over your own wife. A dead man's dream." She called my father's life's work a dead man's dream. In his shop, in his chair. I locked the door, sat down in chair one, and I didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't punch anything. I just sat there and thought about what I was going to do. Not out of rage, out of clarity. Something clicked. Not loud, not dramatic, like a lock engaging. I pulled out my phone and opened my contacts. I scrolled to a name I hadn't called in 2 years. My uncle Babatunde, my dad's younger brother. A real estate attorney in San Jose who'd helped my dad set up the trust in the first place. That was the moment I stopped being a husband and started being a problem. Here's what nobody knew. I'd found the Andouille receipt 6 months before that Sunday morning in the shop. 6 months. The texts, the cologne, the gym friend I'd been watching for half a year. I didn't react because reacting wasn't the play. Documenting was the play. Every barber knows this. You don't start cutting until you know exactly what the client wants. You look at the head shape, you study the growth pattern, you figure out where the cowlicks are, and then, only then, do you pick up the clippers. I'd been studying. In those 6 months, I'd done the following. I contacted Uncle Babatunde in January. He reviewed my dad's trust documents and confirmed something critical. The trust named me as sole beneficiary and trustee. Wren had no legal claim to the building or the shop unless I voluntarily added her, which I hadn't, or unless I transferred the deed, which I hadn't done either. The trust was ironclad. My dad had paid Babatunde $4,200 to make sure of that. But Babatunde also said something that worried him. "Someone's been pulling property records on your building. I have a contact at the county assessor's office. 3 inquiries in the last 4 months, all from the same notary service. Bell Tower Notary in Folsom." Folsom, where Claudine lived. I drove to Bell Tower Notary on a Wednesday. I didn't go inside. I sat in my Honda Civic in the parking lot, eating a breakfast burrito from Jim Boy's, and I watched. At 11:20 a.m., Claudine's silver Lexus pulled in. She went inside for 40 minutes and came out with a manila envelope. That's when I called my buddy Case. Case worked in IT at Sutter Health, but before that he'd done 2 years at a document forensics lab in Elk Grove. I told him what I suspected. He said, "If they forge a deed transfer, the signature comparison alone would sink them. But you'd need the original for comparison." The original? In my fireproof lockbox. Unit 247. Stockton Boulevard. A man who knows his ground never has to run. I also did something else during those 6 months. I researched Mercer Fontaine, his restaurant concept, his investors, his financial situation. What I found was almost funny. Mercer had $11,400 in debt across 3 credit cards. He'd been evicted from an apartment on Freeport Boulevard in 2022 for non-payment. His GoFundMe had stalled at $3,200. His investors were 2 guys from his culinary school cohort who'd each pledged $5,000 verbally, but put nothing in writing. And the space he wanted for his restaurant, the only space he could afford, was my building. Because Wren had apparently promised it to him. I also found one more thing. Mercer Fontaine had a wife, technically an estranged wife, Odessa Fontaine, née Moret. She lived in Natomas. They'd separated 8 months ago but never filed for divorce, and based on her social media, she was a dental assistant who posted a lot of inspirational quotes and photos of her 2 cats. She had no idea Mercer was seeing anyone. That was my deck. I just needed to play it. I hired a lawyer, Not Babatunda. He was family, and I needed someone with no emotional attachment. I retained Kamisha Vaughn Reyes at a firm on Capitol Mall. She specialized in property fraud and trust disputes. I paid her $3,500 retainer with money I'd been quietly moving to a separate account at a different credit union. Golden one, not the joint account at Safe Credit Union that Wren had access to. Kamisha looked at everything I had, the trust documents, the property records, the bell tower notary inquiries, the timeline of Wren and Mercer's relationship, the text I'd screenshot from Wren's phone at 2:14 a.m. "They're going to try to forge a transfer," Kamisha said. "Probably a quitclaim deed. Your wife signs as your representative, gets it notarized, files it with the county. By the time you find out, the building's in her name. Or worse, in his." "Can they do that?" "They can try. People do it every day. The question is whether you'll be ready when they do." I was ready. Remember the storage unit? Unit 247 on Stockton Boulevard, combination lock? 2 weeks before Wren brought Mercer to the shop, I moved the original deed and every trust document to a safety deposit box at a Chase branch in Rancho Cordova. I replaced the lockbox contents with photocopies. Good ones, but copies. If someone broke into that unit, they'd find what looked like the originals. But they weren't. And remember Giovanni, my apprentice? That kid wasn't just good with a fade. He was good with his eyes. I told him to keep track of anyone who came to the shop when I wasn't there. He texted me every visit. Wren alone, twice. Wren with Claudine, once. Wren with Mercer, 3 times. He noted dates and times. I saved every text. Kamisha also reached out to Odessa Fontaine. Not to recruit her, just to inform her. "Your husband is involved in what may be a property fraud scheme," she said. Odessa's response, according to Kamisha, was, "That tracks." Odessa had her own grievances. She wanted in on whatever was coming. So when Wren came home that Sunday, after I kicked her and Mercer out of the shop, and she sat across from me at our kitchen table with her arms crossed and said, "We need to talk about the building, Teague, because this isn't sustainable." I already had everything in place, but I didn't play it yet. Not yet. "Okay," I said. "Let's talk." Mercer has a real opportunity. The restaurant could bring in $40,000 a month once it's established. We sell the building, use the money to invest in Andouille, and we all win. "We all win?" I repeated. "Yes, you, me, Mercer. It's a partnership." "A partnership?" "Stop repeating everything I say." "Okay." "The barbershop isn't growing, Teague. You know that. Your dad's gone. The neighborhood is changing. We could get $740,000 for that building tomorrow." There it was. The exact assessed value. She'd done her homework, or Claudine had. "I'll think about it," I said. Wren smiled. It was the warmest smile she'd given me in months, and it was completely hollow. "Really?" I said, "I'll think about it." I thought about it for exactly 4 days. Then Claudine called. "Honey, Wren tells me you're being reasonable about the building. I'm so glad. I have a notary who can handle the paperwork. Saves you the hassle." "Bell Tower notary." "Of course." "Claudine, I appreciate it, but I'll handle the paperwork myself." "Nonsense. I already have the forms drawn up. All you need to do is sign." "Send them over. I'll take a look." She sent them the next day. A quitclaim deed transferring the building from my trust to Wren Bellacourt and Mercer Fontaine, joint tenants. My signature line at the bottom. I called Kamisha. "They sent the form." "Perfect. Don't sign anything. Let them make the next move." The next move came 9 days later. I came home from the shop and Wren was sitting on the couch with a notary. A woman from Bell Tower, ID badge and everything, and a folder of documents. I need you to sign these, Wren said. It's just the transfer paperwork. Claudine's notary is here to make it official. I looked at the documents. Quitclaim deed. My name typed in the grantor field. Wren's name and Mercer's in the grantee field. I'm not signing this, I said. Teague? I'm not signing this, Wren. The notary looked uncomfortable. Wren's jaw tightened. Fine, Wren said. Fine. We'll do it your way. The notary left. Wren didn't speak to me for 3 days. Then, on a Thursday morning while I was at the shop, Wren signed the quitclaim deed herself. She forged my signature, had it notarized at Bell Tower, and filed it with the Sacramento County Recorder's Office. She transferred my father's building, the building he'd bought with 19 years of haircuts, to herself and her boyfriend. She did this at 10:47 a.m. I know the exact time because Kamisha had set up an alert on the property. My phone buzzed at 10:52 a.m. It's filed, Kamisha said. They forged it. We have them. I stood in the shop. Giovanni was sweeping. Mr. Gaspar was in chair 5, asleep as usual. Marvin Gaye was playing. I looked at the chair by the window, my dad's chair, and I smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a vindictive smile. The kind of smile you smile when you've been holding your breath for 6 months and you can finally exhale. I called Uncle Babatunde. It's time. We set the meeting for the following Tuesday at Kamisha's office on Capitol Mall. I told Wren it was a mediation meeting about the building, that I was willing to negotiate. She was thrilled. She called Claudine. She called Mercer. She hired a lawyer, a guy named DeWitt from a strip mall firm in Rancho Cordova, who mostly did DUI cases but was cheap. They all showed up at 2 p.m. Wren in a new blazer, Claudine in her silk scarf, Mercer in the linen shirt, DeWitt in a tie that was too short. Kamisha's conference room had a long oak table, glass walls, and a view of Capitol Park. There were bottles of Pellegrino on the table and a tray of shortbread cookies from a bakery on K Street. I noticed Mercer took 2 cookies before sitting down. Claudine took a Pellegrino and didn't open it. Wren sat across from me and gave me the warm, hollow smile. I'm glad we're doing this. Me too, I said. DeWitt opened with a proposal. A 60-40 split of the building's sale value, with 60% going to Wren. Given Mrs. Belcourt's contributions to the marriage and the appreciation of the property during the marital period, he said, reading from a legal pad like a high schooler giving a book report. Kamisha let him finish. Then she slid a folder across the table. Before we discuss any proposals, she said, I'd like to address the quitclaim deed filed on June 14th with the Sacramento County Recorder's Office. Wren didn't blink. What about it? Your husband didn't sign it. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. Kamisha opened the folder. Inside were 2 documents side by side. Kamisha, the forged quitclaim deed, with its version of my signature, and the original trust deed from 2004, with my actual signature, which I'd made when I was 18, as a co-signatory when my dad added me to the trust. Kamisha pointed to the notary, who Babatunde had brought specifically for this purpose, an independent document examiner named Dr. Priscilla Huang, certified by the American Board of Forensic Document Examiners. She'd been sitting quietly in the corner, and now she stepped forward with her report. The signature on the quitclaim deed is a forgery, Dr. Huang said. The letter formation, pen pressure, and stroke sequencing are inconsistent with the authentic signature. Additionally, the notarization was performed by a bell tower notary employee who is the mother of the grantee. Claudine's silk scarf seemed to tighten around her neck. She'd notarized her own daughter's forged document. That wasn't just fraud, it was a felony. Ma'am, the notary examiner said, looking at Wren, these aren't even close. That was the moment from the beginning. The 6 seconds. Mercer put down his cookie. DeWitt put down his pen. Claudine stood up and sat back down. Kamisha continued. We've also documented the following. 3 unauthorized property inquiries from Bell Tower Notary, initiated by Claudine Belcourt, a licensed notary who used her credentials to facilitate a fraudulent transfer. A pattern of coercion and financial manipulation documented over 6 months, including text messages, witness testimony from shop employees, and a recorded conversation in which Mrs. Belcourt stated, and I quote, "We sell the building, use the money to invest in Andouille, and we all win." Wren's face had gone white. Not angry white, scared white. Furthermore, Kamisha said, Mr. Oduya has filed a criminal complaint for forgery, fraud, and conspiracy to commit real estate fraud with the Sacramento County District Attorney's Office. That complaint names Wren Belcourt, Claudine Belcourt, and Mercer Fontaine. Mercer stood up. I didn't sign anything. I was just, she told me. Mr. Fontaine, Kamisha said, you are named as a grantee on a fraudulently obtained deed. You visited the property on multiple occasions to assess it for commercial conversion. And, she paused, pulling one more sheet from the folder. Your wife, Odessa Fontaine, has provided a sworn statement indicating that you discussed the acquisition of this property with her in April, describing it as, quote, a sure thing because Wren's handling the husband. Mercer sat back down. He looked like someone had unplugged him. DeWitt leaned over to Wren. I need to speak with my client privately. Your client, Kamisha said, can speak with you outside. But the filing stands, and the trust is intact. Mr. Oduya's property has never legally changed hands. I looked at Wren. She was staring at the forged deed like it was a mirror. You planned this, she said, not angry, almost admiring. Almost. I stood up. I buttoned my jacket, and I said 5 words. You were sitting in his chair. Then I walked out. The month after the meeting was like watching dominoes fall in slow motion. Within a week, the Sacramento County DA opened a formal investigation into the forged deed. Claudine's notary license was suspended pending review. Bell Tower Notary's business license was flagged. Claudine hired a defense attorney, a real one, not a DeWitt, and the retainer alone was $15,000. She called me once, crying, which was a first. Honey, please. I was just trying to help my daughter. I know, I said. That's the problem. Within 2 weeks, Wren moved out of our apartment. She went to Claudine's house in Folsom, which must have been tense, given that Claudine was now facing her own criminal charges. Wren filed for divorce. I didn't contest it. There was nothing to contest. The building was mine. The shop was mine. Nothing. Our joint savings account had $4,200 in it, which I let her keep. Our apartment lease was month to month and in my name. I stayed. Within a month, Mercer's restaurant concept died. Not because of the criminal complaint, though that didn't help, but because his 2 verbal investors found out about the fraud charges and disappeared. The GoFundMe was taken down. His Instagram went private. Odessa filed for divorce, and because Mercer had no assets and considerable debt, it was uncontested. She got the cats. The enablers fell too. Piper from Verdun, who'd laughed at Wren's astronaut joke, was let go from the boutique 3 weeks later for an unrelated inventory discrepancy. But I heard about it through the grapevine, and I'd be lying if I said it didn't bring me a small, petty satisfaction. DeWitt sent me a bill for $800 in consultation fees related to the failed mediation. Kamisha sent him a letter explaining that billing the victim of a fraud for the perpetrator's legal costs was, quote, creative, but no. He dropped it. Wren reached out one last time. A text, 11:43 p.m. on a Wednesday, about 6 weeks after the meeting. I know you won't believe this, but I'm sorry. I really did love you at the beginning. I just wanted more than what we had. I know that's not an excuse. I read it twice, 3 times. I thought about what to say. I thought about everything she'd said and done, the dead man's dream, the astronaut joke, moving my dad's license to the closet, the cologne, the chair. I typed back, I believe you loved me at the beginning, but you stopped, and instead of leaving, you tried to take everything. That's the part I can't forgive. Take care of yourself, Ren. She didn't respond. The shop is still mine. Oduya's on Broadway. I repainted the sign last month, new font, same name. Giovanni passed his journeyman's exam in August, and now he runs Chair 3 full-time. I hired a second apprentice, a 20-year-old named Dahlia, who's better with a straight razor than anyone I've ever seen. Mr. Gaspar still comes in every Thursday and still falls asleep in Chair 5. The second floor expansion is underway. Not the full academy yet, that's a 2-year plan. But I knocked out a wall and added a small lounge area with a coffee station and 2 leather chairs. The napkin sketch my dad and I made at the Denny's is framed on the wall up there, not laminated anymore. Framed properly behind glass with a small brass plate that reads, Oduya's, Phase 1. I'm not dating. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. But I'm not closed to it either. I'm 26 years old. I own a building in a neighborhood that's growing. I have a trade that puts me face to face with people every single day, and I'm good at it. I have my dad's chair by the window. I have his name on the sign. Last Sunday I opened the shop early, before anyone else was there. Made a cup of coffee with the new machine. A Breville, refurbished, $180 off eBay. Sat in chair 1. The sun was coming through the window, hitting the chrome armrest, and I could hear the pupuseria flores opening next door, the clatter of pans and the faint smell of beans and cheese. I thought about my dad, about what he said. A man who knows his ground never has to run. I didn't run. I just stood still and let them crash into the thing I'd built. And when the dust settled, I was still here. Cutting hair, same chair, same ground.